this video, as you could tell from the title, we're making the Starfire outfit, so her skirt and her top. We have a lot to get done, so I'm just going to jump right into it and show you guys what I did.
First things first, we need to make ourselves some patterns. So I just took some printer paper, taped it together just large enough for the 3 different stencils that I'm going to make, which is the front of the shirt, the back of the shirt, and my skirt. I also grabbed a shirt that just kind of fits over me very snugly to trace my pattern, so the fabric doesn't stretch very much when I put it on. So here I'm just tracing out one half of it. And then right here I'm using the ruler to kind of pinpoint where I want the neck portion to go, because that's a little bit more difficult to draw with fabric over the top of that. So when I finish tracing here, I'm going to also make sure that the neck lines up correctly, and then actually write down that this is the front and write down where I want it to fold, where it's going to be folded in half and where the seams are. And then I duplicate this for the back and then just cut it out. And then you have just about 2 perfect templates. I just wanted to obviously make sure that everything lined up. It turns out that the straps at the top did not, so I adjusted accordingly before cutting the back out, and then we do that. And then of course, always double check your work as often as you can, and everything turned out good. So then we move on to the skirt. So I found this hack on Pinterest where you actually just take the circumference of your waist. I measured it using some regular fabric measuring tape that came up to 35 inches. Use that as a circumference equation, which equals 2 pi r. 2 pi is about 6.283 when you want to do it at home. Divide 35 inches by 6.283 came up to 5.57, and then it's going to be 18 inches long, just so I have a little bit of leeway. So here you see me marking those measurements out, 5.57 from the corner and then 18 inches further from that. And then I used the old protractor trick with just some ribbon and 2 pencils and mark those 2 curvatures. And then cut along those. And then we should be set to go with our skirt pattern. Now, unfortunately, this did not turn out as well as I had hoped, because obviously my waist is not a perfect circle, but you'll see how I adjust for that later on in this video. So here I'm taking my fabric, getting ready to cut out my skirt. I actually folded it into quarters, and then it actually took me a while because this is very stretchy fabric, and the last thing you want is folds in it, so you want to make sure that it's as flat as you can get, no creases whatsoever. Tape down your templates, make it easier on yourself, and then I cut out accordingly. And make sure that that corner that you're laying it on is where no ends are laying out, so every portion of it is folded. So you see everything's cut out, and then we have a perfect little skirt template. It looks really nice, but again, it's for more of a flowy skirt is actually what it turned out to be, not as tight as we wanted it for Starfire. And again, because my waist isn't a perfect circle, I tried it on, was like, this is definitely not right. Kind of measured it, made small triangle flaps to kind of keep that shape, and then cut it from either side. Tried it again, realized again, it's still too flowy. So I made sure that the cuts were actually more straight rather than on the same angle as the original pattern cut out to be. Do that for both sides so that when you do sew them together, the seams come together very nicely. Another thing to keep in mind, because my fabric is so stretchy, I did not put any seam allowance in my template or in while I was cutting it. So that is why I would usually give myself about 1/8 of an inch of seam allowance, so when you're sewing it, you have that extra fabric there. But because it is so stretchy, I did not need to. Alright, and then next we go into the shirt. Now for the shirt template, I folded it in half, taped down the template, and again, make sure that fold is where you put the fold label, and then cut it out accordingly. So one thing I cannot stress enough for this type of fabric that I'm working with is because it is so stretchy, when you are cutting, make sure not to pull on the fabric. You want to make sure that both sides, the beneath and the top where you folded it, are together nicely, and when you tug on it, it'll obviously make it shrink once you let go. So make sure, really try hard not to pull on the fabric. So here you can see the front piece of the shirt already cut out, and then just repeat that process for the back. Of course, obviously make sure they match up, and then on to the sewing. Unfortunately, my machine did not like this type of fabric, so I did have to do it by hand. I just did the usual tie it at one end, sew it through, and then before you go into the next stitch, just loop it through. That way you have a nice tight seam. And then it was just a very tedious process. You do that on both shoulders. Of course, make sure that it stays well together when you flip it over. One thing, obviously, before you get started stitching is to make sure that the fabric you want on the outside, depending on which side of the fabric you're using, I decided to use the lighter side, is actually not where the stitch is on top of. So when you turn it inside out, you don't see any of the threads. So you see me here actually lengthening the thread, because on the sides, as well as for the skirt, trying to use one long piece of thread is nearly impossible. It's going to get tangled. So what you do is actually tie a second end onto each other once you're just about near the end of your first piece. And then just make sure it's double, triple knotted together, and then re-sew it through your needle. And then keep going. And then eventually you see here, I did it for all of that. And again, make sure when you are stitching that you do not tug on the fabric. You want to make sure that it lines up appropriately end to end, and stretching the fabric will deform the way that it looks once you're done.
And there we have it. So as you can see here, just enough midriff where I feel comfortable with it. The skirt is a little bit too flowy, obviously, for what Starfire should have, but again, I'm going to wait closer to the actual con because I want to get a little bit more muscle tone on me, which might obviously cause my thighs to slim down a bit. So I'm going to wait, and then we're actually going to cut off the length because this is extremely long. You can't really see in this camera angle. So we're going to cut the skirt a little bit shorter to wherever the boots will lie, which will be in the next episode. And then obviously sew the back up just a little bit more on an angle, so it'll be like a triangle of extra fabric kind of a deal. And again, we'll have to, and we're hopefully going to see if we can use the machine for that. But I guess we'll just wait and see. The top fits great. I love the stretchy fabric. It fits me well. It's not tight at all. And I'm so excited. And obviously the shoulder portion is going to be covered by the armor, which looks so good. You guys are going to love it. I'm so excited. Hope you guys like this video. As always, leave a like, comment, and please subscribe if you aren't already. We have a lot of new projects coming up, and Starfire's already on her way, with plenty of other characters down the road too. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys later.